Hi, Louise.
Hi, Sarah.
Here we are. Oh, I'm holding up the book, but I have you might have to hold up the book for YouTube.
There we go.
The Adoptee's Journey from Loss and Trauma to Healing and Empowerment, Cameron Lee Small. I will say that I have my blurry background up because Woody made it, tousled my covers, and I was like, I'm not dealing with that today.
Can you
So
believe that, Woody?
I'm
Sorry,
blaming Woody.
YouTube watchers, you don't get to see Woody or the background.
Yeah.
So this is
Um,
loss and grief.
Chapter 3, Loss and Grief.
Yeah,
This opening
yeah.
quote at the beginning, after you died, I could not hold a funeral, and so my life became a funeral by Hong Kong. That is just
Isn't that great?
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking. He picks like the perfect, just everything he puts in here is so well thought through. Um, he has at the beginning, being adopted is carrying an infinite number of possibilities around in your body. Lives you have lived, people you could have been, strangers who could have been your parents. It is a being trapped in time. While others live on without you, it's a travel through time while you live on without the others. It's a living contradiction, you know what I'm trying to say, as you become members of multiple families, members plural. Keeps going, but just big
I
opening,
know.
right?
And then he just, simple statement, truthful statement. Grief is an inward response to an
Mm.
external loss of something or someone significant.
Yeah, it helps you know what's important. And I agree with that. Like, well, he's really in this, he gets into different people, but we're going to kind of focus on some of the adoptee things he focuses on for healing, for grief. What is grief, trauma? So,
Hmm.
because these are long chapters. So I hope you're reading with us because we're not covering some of the other interior content. It's so good and so well written.
It's so well written and
Hmm.
really profound.
Yeah.
He really gets so honest and profound. Words for adoptee grief. Many adoptees spend the majority of their youth and adolescence without the language to explore, understand, or deal with grief related to adoption. The following concepts would become particularly useful to my own grief journey, he says.
Hmm.
And he goes through loss, ambiguous loss,
Hmm.
grief, disenfranchised grief.
Hmm.
So if you get the book, you can read in depth about what he's talking about. Mourning. Mourning is an action or ritual practiced in response to feelings of grief, generally meant to help an individual or community cope with feelings. Of course, we
Hmm.
don't get to have any of that, right?
Yeah.
The adoptees.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I was going to say this. It sounds kind of funny to say, and I don't know if it's controversial or not, but I feel like he is Christian. He's operating in a Christian part of this helps with it's for Christians to
Hmm.
kind of understand this, which is a hard, we talked about this, a hard sell with the adoptee thing, right? And yet if everyone were like him, boy, wouldn't it be different? Because he's
And
so
and
thoughtful.
it's also brave of him to write the book
It
because
is.
there's so much wrapped up in
Yes.
the savior mentality of religion,
Yeah.
so for him to take this on
It's
and
big.
face that.
He does get pushback. Yeah.
I like how he says, I acknowledge that some individuals escape unmentionable suffering and torment through some form of separation from their birth family, where there's relief from abuse and terror is unspeakable.
Mm-hmm.
But abusive parents, birth parents are still parents.
Oh,
Incarcerated mothers are still mothers. Deceased fathers are still fathers. Absent family is still family, whether next door or across the earth, from dysfunctional to donor conceived.
yeah. It's
You know,
so
and
true.
and
I
and
like
that
that.
really fights, that really challenges the narrative of you. Well, you are better off. Well, maybe, sure, maybe I'm leaving an abusive situation, but it's still a loss. There's still something to grieve about.
It's your family. You still grieve it, and and the not knowing, like he lived without not knowing so many things about himself, is not okay for anybody to not know who you are, whether it's an ugly past or a good
Except
past.
that he did know he was there for
Yeah,
3 years, you
yeah.
know?
But it was all kind of like, he's so young, the memories.
Hmm.
And then constantly in his situation being told how grateful, right? Because also being a Korean adoptee, which all that's coming out with Korea right now. I
Right.
mean, they're making reconciliations, of course. the U.S. has yet to say their part in it.
Of course, God knows that will probably never happen.
No. Here's a key point. I'm going to highlight some of these key points. I know you will too. When adoptees feel grief, we need a way to mourn. That's the thing about mourning, right? It's the healing.
Hmm.
And it won't be a one time event. Just an adoption is more than a one time event. Throughout the stages of our lives, we'll encounter random moments along with deeply profound milestones in which we must deal with adoptee specific grief, which is different than other grief. We always try to say this like, of course, someone that loses their mother or has divorce, everybody has grief, everybody. We're not discounting other people's, but there's a specific grief for adoptees.
Right. There's a specific grief, which
Mm-hmm.
is, and grief is inward and mourning is outward. Grief is
Mm-hmm.
the body's response to loss. Mourning is an outward expression of the inward reality.
Mm-hmm. I
Oh
know.
boy.
I
It,
know. That's so good. Yeah. And here, another thing, I don't know if we'll talk about this, but he does get into things to, I like his plan, right? If you're
I do
someone,
too. This is, like we said this
yeah,
last week, it's really a workbook.
it is.
It's a healing workbook.
Yeah.
And I really honestly can't recommend it highly enough. It's in 3 chapters, I'm already getting
I
so
know.
much out of it. When you
I
think
kind
that
of,
you've
yeah.
4 years in and we've know what we know, yet there's still so much to learn.
It's funny, I thought of this book. Actually, you're saying that because I've been going down the stalking like my uncles on Facebook stuff. I go through that every so often, as we all do. You delve into it. Like I'm related to these people, right? Looking at the pictures, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is. I'm glad to read this before I kind of really, if I do get to know them, I feel like I'm going to use some of this because I could have
Yes.
used this so many years ago. It's
We
really good.
had, and I don't know if you saw, we got a message on our social media from an adoptive parent who
Oh, I didn't.
adopted a child from a baby box
Oh,
and wanted to know if we had any episodes that were of from someone, about that. And I was like, we don't, Mm, go maybe
but
someone's
please
written about
listen.
it, essays, but
Yeah,
this will still help you with your child's CPTSD. And
yeah,
then I asked her, are you the same race as your child? And she says, no, we're white and he is Black and Hispanic. And I said, well, then read. I'm going to recommend this book, but off the
yes,
top of my head, you should be grateful by Angela Tucker. I'm like,
of
that's a
course.
must read. It's a hard read, and I said, and there's really recommendations that you move to a neighborhood of color, you put your child in
Yeah,
schools of people of color, and you have friends of color.
yeah.
These are all things your child will need mirrors. I went into this whole thing with her, so
Good. I didn't see that. Good for you.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
this
we'll
should be a good one too. I think
and
this
this,
is a
I'm going
good
to
one too.
recommend this one to her too. But
Yeah. Isn't that
yeah,
great though? You know what's great about that is she reached out,
yes,
already wanting to help a little, know more than just we know everything. It's like just, what that's the best news when you hear someone reach
uh,
out, right?
that's trying. Yeah.
Mhm. Baby.
Um, One of the other key points when grief related to adoption can be openly acknowledged and socially accepted, adoptees are freed to mourn in private and public in ways specific to them so that true life would break through joints and marrow.
Yeah. That's the thing, it being acknowledged. I've had such healing myself just having both families in my life now. It's so healing. It's like almost like 10 years of therapy couldn't have helped me like that helped me.
I
That's the
know.
truth. It just makes you go, oh, okay. You know,
And 4 years of our podcast
oh,
and
oh,
hearing
please.
everybody's stories and it's been an acceleration of healing too,
Yeah,
I think. I mean, it's a long process. In fact, he even says,
he
I'm not
does.
convinced adoption is something we just get over,
Nope,
you know? It is a
nope.
lifelong thing.
It is a lifelong thing. Yeah, I
Oh,
agree. Well, I think that kind of wraps it up. There's a lot more.
yeah. I just, we're touching on things in the chapters, but really to get the benefit of the book, you should read it, get it. We put the
Yeah,
link in our show notes. It's really worth it. All the
yeah.
books that we read, I think it's
Oh
it's
my gosh.
worth, adding to your collection and reading along with us.
It is. This
Um,
is a good one. And it's one to carry around and kind of, like you said, I feel like I have more words to say to people in a nice
hmm
way. Not in a nice way, but in a way that doesn't insult others, but really strong way. Because
Right.
it's hard sometimes. Like I get emotional and then I don't say what I want to say. And all this, and
Same.
he has the right
And
talking
I know
points.
that my face shows,
Me too.
overthinking when I think I told you, ran into some friends and she's like, oh, my friends are thinking of adopting. I think I just rolled my eyes. Wait, I
Right.
had IVF and it didn't work. I'm like, okay, yet another example of second choice.
Right. And it's funny because people do want children and they do have pain not having children. And of course there's people out there like that, but it's so much better the words to say it properly to really
Yes.
and not come off like, let me tell you.
Right. And have
He's
some,
really good at that
he's very good at it. He
because
is
he's so
so,
kind but so blunt.
I know. I can't wait to talk to him when we
Me
have him on the
too.
podcast. All right. Well, next week we have Trauma and Recovery, Chapter 4.
Yeah,
So
that'll be
you
good.
all who haven't gotten the book yet, you have time to catch up.
You have time, do it. And do
Yeah,
it for the future, for your library.
exactly.
All
Okay.
right.
So we'll see you in a minute for Eliana.
Yeah. See you soon. See you in a minute.
In a minute.